So what we're going to do today is something that we've never really done before in this kind of a forum, and I don't know if we're going to release the tape or not. We're going to have to see how it goes, because it's possible that we can end up in some very, very dark territory, and we're going to be straight up about this. The topic of the class is the 2019 different faces of anti-Semitism. The reason that we chose the topic is pretty obvious, because every day you open up your Facebook feed. I'm assuming that that's where everyone gets their news. You open up your Facebook feed, and there's, people are shooting up Jewish supermarkets, and they're beating them up on subway trains, and they're hitting them in the street, and they're stabbing them when they're walking to shul on Shabbos, and Beverly Hills synagogues are being defaced, and it's really visceral, because instead of just reading about it, you get pictures. I've never seen Torahs look like that, except in Holocaust art, when you go to Yad Vashem and you see it, and it's like, oh my God, and it's sort of a head scratcher, because why? Yeah. This isn't happening in Kansas, right? In Kansas and Alabama. This is happening in New York and LA, and even Miami. And so I figure we have to talk about this. We have to talk about it. And what does the Torah have anything to say about this sort of thing? How should we be reacting? What's the cause of it? If there is one. So people have been scratching their heads over anti-Semitism for, thousands of years, right? Because sometimes they hate us because we're too rich, and other times it's because we're too poor, we're too capitalist, communist, we're too cosmopolitan, we're too extreme, we're too moderate, we're in the government, we're out of the government, we're alone, we're too integrated, all these things, right? They hate Jews for every reason other than the fact that we're too stupid. They never say that. They never oh, we hate you because you're stupid, because that wouldn't really be much of a stereotype. No one hates Jews because they're too tall either. I suppose that's also a thing that people don't hate us for. So what's the real reason? Why is it really happening? And we're going to find that the reason that you can't find the reason, because there's not one reason. There's not one reason. If you're looking for one reason, you're not going to find it, because there ain't one. There are, unfortunately, many reasons, and we're going to go through them. We're going to go through them as painful as they might feel. I came to this realization a couple years ago. I doubt I'm the only one who's thought of this, because it's out there and it's pretty patently obvious when you take a look. But if you were to say, what does the British Labour Party and the Ku Klux Klan and the alt-right and the liberal progressive left in America, what do they all have in common? You'd think, well, two things. They have two things in common. They all wear shoes, and they all hate Jews. Shoes and Jews. Those are the two things that they have in common. What's that? Right, exactly, the Black Hebrew Israelites, which we're going to get to soon. But you understand, these people hate each other incredibly. They're all You see Antifa rallies against the KKK, and the only thing that they can agree on is that you have to die. That they agree on. Nothing else. Whether you put ketchup or mustard on a burger, they can't get together on. But the fact that you got to go, yeah, they're together on that. I think that's a head scratcher. So what does the Torah have to say about it? Well, it turns out that we are literally in the greatest portions of the Torah for dealing with this exact type of thing, because we just had the parshios of Toldos, Vayetze, and Vayishlach. And we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into some Bible stories that you've been aware of your entire life, since childhood, but you're going to see them a little bit differently by, give me 20 minutes, and they're going to be very, very different. So the first thing that you have to contend with is that Yitzchak has these two kids. He's got Yaakov and Esav, and they're twins, and Esav is the older one, and Yaakov is the younger one, and everybody knows Esav is the bad guy, and Yaakov is the good guy. Esav is sort of like a murderer. They always draw him in red. When you're a little kid in the projects, he's the angry guy, and Yaakov is oh, so nice, and he has a beard and that sort of thing. But that's not, you don't find that if you look in the Torah. That's more of a cultural thing, because we teach our kids that that's true, but it's not so simple that that's true at all. And Yaakov goes and screws his brother. I mean, that's really what happens, right? You know that. Yaakov screws his brother out of his birthright, out of his blessing. And not only does he screw his brother out of the blessing, but he manipulates his old blind father. How bad can you get? How bad can you get? You screw over your dad and your brother at the same time. And that's only compounded by the fact that the one who put you up to it was your mom, right? It was your mom. Like, what kind of dysfunctional Jewish family? And the answer is, it's what we see today, dysfunctional Jewish families. It's strange. It's bizarre. You have to admit that it's bizarre. And of course, you might say to yourself, how do you steal a blessing anyway? Like, you know you can't steal a blessing. A blessing isn't like currency. Like, I can steal your watch. If I go and I take your watch and I put it in my pocket and I run away, maybe you find me, maybe you don't, but that's my watch now. But if I mean to give you a blessing and I accidentally blessed Anita because I didn't know that she was sitting there and I thought it was you, like, is a blessing some sort of a hard currency? Is it a magic genie that once you pop the cork off and it goes out of the bottle, you can't stick it back in the bottle? Is that how it works? That's odd. I mean, wouldn't you have assumed that Yaakov goes in, steals the blessing, walks out, Esav comes in, shows his dad that, it was the wrong brother. What would you have imagined Yitzchak to do? Oh, ha, 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 Yaakov, that silly goose. What a great trick. Okay, come on, Esav, I'll give you the blessing now. Like, why wouldn't he just do that? Very weird. Very weird. And then, immediately after that, Yaakov has to run away. Why does he have to run away? Because his brother's going to kill him. That's why Esau's the bad guy, right? He's going to kill him. But is he really such a bad guy? He only wants to kill him because you stole his birthright. I mean, how would you feel? How would you feel? You're the crown prince. You're the crown prince. You're the heir apparent. You've been working your whole life towards a certain end. And then all of a sudden, your little brother comes and steals it from you. The fact that you're murderous towards your little brother doesn't make you such a bad guy. It makes him a bad guy. I know we descend from the bad guy, so we say that he's so good and everything. But it's not so simple that that's true. So Yaakov runs off. Yaakov runs away to live with Lavan, who becomes his father-in-law. And do you know what Lavan is known for? Let me show you. So, if you look in the beginning of the portion of Toldot.
I'm in the wrong place.
I don't know that you're in the wrong place. I think this might be the right place. I think this might be the right place. So, if you look in the beginning of Parshat Toldot, it says that Yitzchak was 40 years old when he married Rivka, bat Betuel ha'arami. Just going to write this. Mi Padan Aram, achot Lavan ha'arami. Which means Yitzchak marries Rivka, the daughter of Betuel, the Arami from Aram. Do you understand that? That's the Department of Redundancy department. It's like saying the Floridian Shlomo from Florida. You'd think that the previous adjective already stated where you're from because you're only known as a Mexican if you're from Mexico. Otherwise, you'd be a Venezuelan, obviously. So why would it say that? And it's incredibly redundant because it says Betuel the Arami from Padan Aram, the sister of Lavan, the Arami. Like, goodness gracious, that's one sentence. One sentence. Why does it say that? So Rashi, on the spot, says, well, you know what it's saying. It's really praising the attributes of Rivka, because despite the fact that she grew up in a place of despicable people, and her father was despicable, and her brother was despicable, still she came out as such a wonderful, marvelous, righteous lady. That's great. I love that. Well, why would Aram be despicable? It's like saying, Mexico City. The answer is it's not like saying Mexico City, because the word Aram really jumbles into Ramai, which means trickster. Trickster. The people from Aram are shysters. They're shifty. They're shifty. That's what's going on. So it's saying, therefore, now you look at the verse again, and what it's really saying is, he didn't just marry this gal from a shifty place, but she's the daughter of a guy who, even if he was from somewhere else, he's shifty. You put him in Shiftyville, now he's uber shifty, and her brother's uber shifty, and she turns out great. That's wonderful. Okay, and that's all true. Fantabulous. You know what's super interesting? Do you know what Yitzchak says when he realizes that Yaakov duped him and stole the blessing? He says, Ba achicha b'mirma. Your brother came with trickery. V'yikach berchatecha. And he took your blessing. Your brother came with what? Ramai. Your brother came with mirma, with Ramai. Your brother came with trickery and stole your blessing. Well, why do you think he came with trickery? I don't know. Who's his mom? His mom is Little Miss Trixie from Trixietville. The sister of Trixit, and the daughter of Trixit. That's who she is. So is it such a blatant shock that this is how she acts? I mean, that's kind of where she's from, and And that's their MO over there. I hope it wasn't something I said. Because I was going to say it's going to get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better. Yeah. And in fact, he says, Gam baruchi hieh, which means, and this is, by the way, all by means of introduction. Gam baruchi hieh, he shall indeed be blessed. Do you know why Yitzchak says he shall indeed be blessed? Because you can't steal a blessing. Yaakov did not get the blessing when he fooled his dad. He got the blessing after his dad realized he had been fooled. His dad's like, yeah, he fooled me, and he shall be blessed. But that's weird. Why would you bless the guy that fooled you when you wouldn't have given him the blessing if not for the fact that he fooled you? The answer, I think, is incredibly obvious. The only reason you're giving him the blessing is because he fooled you. That's what Yitzchak is saying. Yitzchak is saying, do you know why your brother gets that blessing? Because he tricked me. Wow. That's strange. What's that? Right. Only because of the trickery. I'm only giving him the blessing because of the trickery, which means that the trickery was not the method of gaining the blessing. It was the method of showing that you deserve the blessing. Yes.
Why couldn't he bless both of them?
He could have, and he did. But they're different blessings. This was now, it became evident to Yitzchak that it was appropriate to give him the blessing because he tricked him. Which is weird, right? That's very, very odd. Yeah.
The blessing comes from Hashem, okay?
Yes.
So his father is just a vessel.
That's very true. So we can discuss blessings in a deeper fashion, and I can explain that to you.
His firstborn can't be negotiated.
Right.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
He still gets the first blessing. He gets the inheritance. He gets everything.
Uh-huh.
But now you trick him out of his physical inheritance.
Right. So that's not what he's tricking him out of. It's a specific blessing that's meant for a specific reason, which we may get to.
Because he was the firstborn.
Mm-mm.
Then he would have got the blessing no matter what, even if he didn't trick
Yeah, it's not about the birth order. The Bechorah is. This is not about the birth order. This is about the personality, what you're supposed to do in life. So let's see, maybe we'll be able to double around to that and see why it's so important. But if you go back to the beginning of that portion, you realize that it's not an accident because Rivka is introduced to you different ways in the Torah. The first time you hear about her, it talks that she is the granddaughter of Milcah, the sister of Sarah. Like, that's a very different way of introducing her. The first time it introduces her, it's talking about her lineage from glorious, wonderful, magnificent people. The second time, it's talking about her descent from tricky people, shysters. Why? What's the difference? I think the difference is simple. This is in the context of marriage. This is saying that the reason Yitzchak loved her was because she was Miss Trixie. That's what he loved about her. A little weird, no? Not what you'd expect. But of course, then at the end of the portion, when Yaakov steals the blessing with trickery, and he's like, oh yeah, very cool. Now it makes a little bit more sense, because he's like, oh, you remind me of my wife. I love her. She's amazing. I'm going to give you this blessing. Well, why? Here's what turns out. And we haven't defined this trickery. I will in a moment. It turns out that Yitzchak thinks that one of the most important ingredients for the future of the Jewish people is mirma. Trickery. One of the most important ingredients for the foundation of our nation is mirma, is trickery. Now that's uncomfortable to hear. That's uncomfortable because you're like, are you saying that everything they say about us is true and we're tricky and evil and like we're Mr. Burns from The Simpsons? Like that makes us feel very uncomfortable. But you see, this is in the Bible. This is over 3,000 years old. This is not new. So we're going to have to contend with that and see why that is. So let's just put this as like one. Keep that on one half of your screen. Yaakov goes and deals with the ultimate trickster himself, Lavan. You know what Lavan means? White, lily white. It's a euphemism. The guy was so slippery, you couldn't pin anything on him. He was the original John Gotti. Could not pin anything on this guy. He was the worst trickster of all time. And Yaakov was able to contend with him. And then, after nearly 3 decades away from home, he decides to go back, and that's where our story begins. He's going back, and who's the first guy he has to deal with on his way home? Big brother, Esav. And he's terrified, because Esav wants to kill him for stealing that blessing 30 years ago. Wants to kill him. So what does Yaakov do? So it says, well, he does 3 things. three things. Number one, he prays to Hashem. That's, classic Jewish stuff. Number two, he prepares for war. Unfortunately, understandable. And number three, anybody know what number three is? He sends gifts. He sends gifts. There's another word for gift. You can call it a bribe or an appeasement. Let me read this. Oh, but seriously, that's what it sounds like. So it says he goes like this. This is the beginning of Vayishlach. Yaakov was very frightened and distressed. So he divided the people with him and all the flocks and cattle and camels into two camps. And he goes, if Esav comes to one and strikes it, then the other one will survive. And then Yaakov prays to Hashem. And then he makes a tribute to his brother Esav. 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 nursing camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-donkeys and 10 he-donkeys. I mean, it's a good thing the Torah lists this for you, because otherwise you wouldn't know how many he-donkeys he sent to his brother. And what kind of a Shabbos table could you have if you didn't know how many he-donkeys Yaakov sent to Esav? And then he sends it in with his servants to send to Esav, and he goes, go ahead of me and leave a space between each drove, between each caravan. So first you get the camels, then you get the monkeys, then you get the ostriches, and then you get, it has to go step by step. Step by step. So the commentaries are like, why? Why did he do that? Why didn't he just send everything at once? And the conventional wisdom, which makes a lot of sense, I'm not going to say it's not true, it is true, it's just not the deepest truth. He goes, because if I hand you a briefcase with $1 million, you'd be pretty happy, right? If I give you a briefcase with $1 million, you'd be like, yo, party on, right? Lunch on you. But if I give you a briefcase with $100,000, and then I wait an hour, and then another bet, $100,000, and then I wait an hour, $100,000, right? It's the same $1 million, but it feels better, right? It's right? Because every hour you're getting another $100,000. You feel really, really good about it. So why did Yaakov say make sure that there's space between each nagla, each drive? Yeah, exactly. He keeps feeling he's getting more and more and more and more and more. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's not why though. You know really why? The biggest question about that whole beginning of the portion is why the heck the Torah is wasting all the ink to tell you how many goats and he-goats and she-goats and he-camels and she-camels. Who cares? Doesn't matter. I get the point. He sent them a lot of money. Shalom al Yisrael, have a nice time. You pay off the German army. I understand that. Why? But just say the number. That it enumerates it for you? It's going into all these details of telling you what he sent and da-da-da-da. Why does that matter? Well, it must be that what he sent and exactly the specificity of the numbers matters. It's very meaningful. Matters a lot. Well, you understand that would answer the second question as well, right? You have two questions. Question number one, why is the Torah wasting so much ink on the he-camels and the she-camels? Question number two, why are you telling me that he has to separate between the two? Well, you understand the first question answers the second question. Because if there's a reason for the specificity, then that would also answer why you want the distance between the things, because you're saying this is one thing and that's another thing. Okay, we haven't identified what that reason is, but at least now we know where to look for it. The questions answer each other, as is often the case. So Rashi says, Yaakov prepared himself, as we mentioned, for three things. He prepared himself with prayer, he prepared for war, and he sent tribute. Now, Jews don't feel so comfortable with the tribute. I'm paying, it's ransom. It's ransom. That's what we're saying. We're saying there's an army outside the gates and they're going to come and they're going to kill everybody. But if we give them all the money in the silo of the king, then maybe they'll walk away for a year. How do you feel about that? Now, I'm not saying you wouldn't do it. Not you would pay the ransom to save the lives of your family. But you feel good about this? It hurts. It hurts. And not only does it hurt, very, very famously, the Maharami Rutenberg, who was a massive rabbi approximately 1,000 years ago, he was kidnapped by the local duke. Why do you think he was kidnapped? For money, because the Jews had money. Imagine that. And he's like, I'm going to kidnap their big rabbi and sell him back to them for $100 million. And guess what? They'll pay. So the Maharam Rutenberg wrote his community a letter saying, don't pay. Do not pay. Why? Exactly, they're going to do it forever. What are you, crazy? If they know that every time they grab a rabbi, you'll pay $100 million. I'm curious, would you pay $100 million to buy me back? I'm a little curious. No, but I'd pay $10, right? Yeah, but seriously, let's see if we can raise some money for the school. Kidnap the rabbi. Yeah. No, the Maram Rudenberg said no. For me, it's yes, 100%. Yeah. So he said, like, don't do it. And yet, this is what we're perpetuating. Like, Yaakov is paying off his brother Esav. Doesn't really set a very good precedent. Says Rashi, this is how the Jews prepare for Esav forever. You think the Torah is telling you the story of Yaakov and Esav so that you'll know the nice history between the two brothers? Think that's why it's telling you? No. No. It's telling you because this is the standard, this is the rubric, this is the method that is going to happen for history. That's what it's saying. So it says that when the heads of state of Judea used to have to go to deal with Rome, with the emperor and the cabinet and whatever else was going on back then, it says they would sit down and study the portion of Vayishlach every time. Now I have a question for you. You don't think they knew the portion of Vayishlach? I know the portion of Vayishlach. I'm a 38-year-old pisher. You don't think the Tanakh rabbis who wrote the Mishnah knew Vayishlach by heart? The answer is they absolutely did. So why do they have to sit down and study Vayishlach every time? Because it's not about the words, is it? Yeah, it's the depth. It's the depth. It's pulling back the layers. It's peeling them one after another. Well, why would that be? Well, because that's right. It's exactly right. Similar. It's exactly right. It's a good way of putting it. It's a formula. That means that each time you look at it, you're seeing it through a different geopolitical lens. And therefore, the methodology will change, will evolve every time. It's what do you do with this kind of leader? What do you do with that kind of leader? What do you do with these socioeconomic circumstances? It's different every time. What does that tell you? That it's formulaic, which means that the roots of anti-Semitism have nothing to do with whether you're taller, short, fat, or skinny, rich or poor, white or black. Nothing. Doesn't matter if you're communist or capitalist. Doesn't matter if you're Labor or Tory. Doesn't matter. All of those things are anecdotes, the way that it's manifesting at your particular time. But that's not what's beneath it. Beneath it all is a pattern. And that pattern will never cease. And therefore, you balance these three things. And these three things in balance will solve for X every time. That's what it's saying. Pretty crazy. It means you can't escape it, no matter where you go or when you live. You will always have to contend with anti-Semitism. So you have all these big forums and think tanks trying to understand, why there's anti-Semitism. So Herzl thinks, maybe it's because we don't have a country. Right, thank goodness we made Israel, and now there's no anti-Semitism anymore. Right, the state of Israel solved the anti-Semitism problem. Everyone has a solution for anti-Semitism, and they're all barking up the wrong tree. Anti-Semitism is a pattern, and it's a constant. It's a constant. The question is how to deal with it, and how to deal with it is in flux, and it's always going to be a balance of three factors, or at least looking through these three lenses. That's what the Torah is saying. So let's examine why. Well, the war piece, I think we all understand. That one is pretty well understood. And the prayer piece is also pretty well understood. Let's talk about the one that bothers everybody, which is the buy you off piece, the tribute piece, the I'll send you money piece. It's gross. It's really gross. It's awful. It's a mugging. And we're condoning it. Okay. I think that we're reading the Torah incorrectly. Why does it go out of its way to tell you the he-goats and the she-goats and the he-camels and the she-camels and the ostriches and the lemons? Why? Well, you'll notice that each one is seen through a lens of how many males and how many females. Why would that be? Because we're talking about procreation. We're talking about procreation, which means that Yaakov figured out the precise ratio of how many horses, male and female, you need in order to populate your 3,000-acre ranch. You have a 3,000-acre ranch, you're going to the fair. How many male horses and female horses do you need to have the perfect proportion for biological procreation, which will become a horse farm, and in 100 years, your great-great-great-grandchildren will be trust funded? That's what he sent Esav, which, if you think about that, is pretty incredible. Means what he sent Esav were basically seeds. Literally and figuratively. He sent him seeds. He says, this seed, if you plant it, will give you a media empire. And this seed, if you plant it, will give you a financial empire. And this seed, if you plant it, will give you the seeds for a sports franchise. And this seed will give you markets. That's what he's sending Esav, which is why he's so OCD about making sure that there's no cross-contamination between the seeds. It has to be exact, and it has to be succinct, and each one goes on its own. Now, keep that in the back of your mind so we can understand why that is so integral to getting rid or to dealing with the anti-Semitism. And it's not going to be pleasant, by the way. I promise you that. It's not going to be pleasant. Shift focus once more for a moment, if I can, back to the beginning when we talk about this Mirma business. Mirma, the Ramai, the trickery. I would like to give you a more modern word for Mirma. As sort of, I want to make it specific. I think it is deceit, there's no doubt. It is deceit. But there's a very specific type of deceit that you see every day, every day. It's called spin. Spin. Yeah, spin. Spin is when you take facts and you lie with them. Let me give you an example. There's easy examples, like, because Israel, you have this every day. Literally every single day. It's such a great example for this, unfortunately, on an ongoing basis. So I want you to imagine there's a lovely 85-year-old grandmother sitting having tea with her 6-year-old granddaughter, and all of a sudden, there's a 15-year-old Arab youth who walks up to them, pulls out an 8-inch blade that he bought at the hardware store, and proceeds to stab the grandmother repeatedly in the neck. And as she bleeds out while her granddaughter is screaming in front of her, there are 2 Israeli security officers that run from across the street and shoot the 15-year-old dead. In 3 hours, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, has the following headline: Israeli security forces shoot 15-year-old Palestinian boy in a shopping mall. Now, is that headline a lie? Absolutely not. And absolutely yes. It is 100% true, and it is 100% a lie. Why? Because it's spin. Because unless you scroll down 5 paragraphs, you will not read that this youth was holding an 8-inch blade from a hardware store repeatedly stabbing a grandmother in the neck in the mall. You won't read that, because that's not in the headline. That's what we call spin. Mirma does not mean to lie. It means to spin. To deal in facts, which are deceiving. The facts are deceiving. That's what Mirma means. And Yitzchak, for some reason, feels that the most integral skill necessary for the perpetuity of the Jewish people is the ability to deal with spin. I wonder why that would be. Why might that be? In fact, he thinks it's so integral that the reason he loves his wife is specifically because she comes from Spinville, daughter of Mr. Spin, sister of Spinny. That's why he loves her. Why does he give the bracha to Yaakov? Because he spun me. Because he succeeded in spinning me. If he can spin me, this blessing is for him. I thought he was a goody two-shoes little yeshiva bacher who sits all day in the tent learning the Torah. No. He's the spin doctor. Oh, he's the spin doctor? Wow. Gam baruch yehiyeh. He can have the blessing. Then he has to walk away and go to Lavan, his father-in-law, Mr. Spinometer. And he spins Lavan. By the way, Lavan gets one on him first. First, Lavan spins him and gives him the wrong girl. Yeah, it worked well. We can go into that one day if you want to know how that worked and how he did it. And then Yaakov ends up taking all of Lavan's wealth and spinning him out of it. But you know what the funny thing is? Do you know how Yaakov spun his father-in-law out of the money? Again, it's uncomfortable, right? We don't like talking about how Jews win at the money. Doesn't feel nice. How did he do it? By giving his father-in-law a deal that he couldn't refuse. What was the deal? Yaakov wanted to go home. He wanted to go back to Israel. Lavan's like, no, I need you here because the only reason that my NFL franchise is worth $4 billion is because you're the quarterback. So I'm willing to pay Aaron Rodgers $37 million a year because the Green Bay franchise is going to be worth $3 billion because of his $37 million. I'm happy to pay you $37 million. So he goes, please, Yaakov, stay. I'll pay you whatever you want. It's literally what he says. He goes, Nikov skarcha alai v'yatena. Tell me whatever amount of money you want, I'll pay it gladly. And Yaakov says, I'll tell you what, I want 0 salary. Lavan's like, tell me more. I want 0 salary. He's like, oh, you want a piece of the business? I don't know. How likely is Elon Musk to give you a piece of SpaceX? The answer is not bloody likely. But this is what he tells him. He goes, I'll tell you what, I will guard all your flocks. I will guard all your flocks. Whenever the sheep give birth to sheep that have like polka dots, those will be mine. I'll take the polka dot ones, you get the good ones. And Lavan's like, are you serious? Are you, really? This is the greatest deal in the world. Greatest deal in the world. He jumps on it. Of course, what ends up happening is they all have polka dot babies. And then Lavan changed the deal. He's like, no more polka dot. Now it's zigzags. They all have zigzag babies. Basically, what that means is Yaakov gave Lavan exactly what he wanted. That was the spin. It was, I'm going to give you what you want. You want to not pay me anything. That's what you really want. You really want to give me nothing. You want me for free. Well, okay. I'll give you the opportunity to get me for free, and let's see how it goes for you. And he spun him like a top, and he ends up with massive wealth. Well, do you understand? I'll give you a great example of this in the modern day. In the modern day. So, Ilan Omar recently, last few months, was talking about how the evil Israelis have snipers shooting at protesters. How despicable is that? Can you imagine? There's peaceful protesters and snipers are shooting at them. She goes, and they're blowing out their knees. They're blowing out their knees. They literally have Israeli snipers shooting at the knees of Palestinian protesters. Was she lying? Not at all. She's not lying. She's telling the truth. Absolutely telling the truth. You know what the funny thing is, though? It's not funny. It's a little funny. If you have a protest with 10,000 people and you want to hurt those people, you know what you wouldn't use? Snipers. Why would you use snipers? 2 machine gun nests. Why would you use snipers? Do you know what snipers are for? Yeah, they're for shooting out kneecaps of very, very specific people. That's why you have snipers. You know what kind of an army doesn't have snipers? Carpet bombers. When you're dropping napalm in Vietnam, you snipers. Why do I want snipers? I'm firebombing 10 square miles. I don't need snipers. Why would the Israeli army use snipers? Exactly. Do you understand that what she is saying, the narrative that she is portraying, proves exactly the opposite of her point? But see, people tend to not see that. People tend to not see that. And the saddest thing, yeah, we're very popular today. The saddest thing is that when Jews try to do, hasbara, when they try to explain, no, but you don't understand, it's legal because under code H14B of the criminal code, it says I can shoot you if you're rioting with a Molotov cocktail. Dude, nobody cares about your stupid legalese. I see a dead baby. Like, I don't know. Spin. It's killing us. Spin is killing us. The President of the United States just did his level best to pass a bill that protects Jews in this country. Immediately, he is denounced as what? An anti-Semite. It's an anti-Semitic bill. It's amazing. It's amazing. But which one is it? Is he doing something because he loves Jews, or is this bill going to lead to anti-Semitism? Do you know what the answer is? Both. Both. Clearly both. He did it because he thinks it will help Jews. And in many situations, it will. It will. And there are people who will use the new definitions to spin and cause more anti-Semitism. Of course they will. Of course they will. Both are true. Just if you think he did it because he hates Jews, then, I mean, that's strange to me. I don't know how both of those thoughts can occur in your mind simultaneously. They're both true. So now let's go back to this paying ransom business. Do you realize that the black Israelites in Jersey City, they don't hate Jews for the same reason that the KKK does? They have different reasons. I'd like to read for you, if you please. This is on the news today. I'd like to read this for you. This is from a member of the school board in Jersey City. Where was all this faith and hope when black homeowners were threatened, intimidated, and harassed by I want to buy your house brutes of the Jewish community? They brazenly came on the property of Ward F black homeowners and waved bags of money. Amazing. Now, where was it then? I'm going to paraphrase. We learned that 6 rabbis were accused of selling body parts. Where's the truth in these reports? If we're going to tell a narrative, it should begin with truth. No more cover-up of the truth. Dialogue is important, but the truth is critical. It was about taking from one community and giving to another community. This is just a small portion of the pains of the black community now being ignored in this rush to faith and hope. Drugs and guns are planted in the black community. Mr. Anderson and Miss Graham, those were the murderers who went in and killed 6 people. They went directly into the kosher supermarket. I believe they knew they would come out in body bags. What is the message they were sending? Are we brave enough to explore the answer to their message? Are we brave enough to stop the assault on the black communities of America? My people deserve respect and to live in peace in this city. Unbelievable. Now, people are denouncing her as anti-Semitic and suggesting that she resign. Suggesting. What was so amazing is that there was another official from the school board, or it may have been the mayor, that said, now is really not the time to talk about that. We could talk about that some other time, but right now you have to let the people mourn. Because obviously, it's totally fine to say we should examine the motives of the 2 murderers who tried to kill many, many people. That's totally fine. We should understand their psychology because I'm sure they have a really good point to make, but let's wait until the Shiva's over, and then let's examine whether or not the Jews in the supermarket deserve to be shot. The scariest part of the Jersey City shooting, to me, was not the shooting. It was not the shooting. That's not the scary part. I know to you it is, and I respect, I understand that. But that's not the scary part to me. The scary part to me was not Pittsburgh. Wasn't Pittsburgh. Well, why not? This guy shot, he killed like 15 people. That's terrifying. Yes, of course it's terrifying. Of course it's horrible. Of course it's horrible. So why does that not scare me? Because it's all the way on the fringe. It's all the way on the fringe. Can it happen? 100%. But you have a much better chance of dying by choking on a pretzel than you have by being shot up in the Eitz Chaim synagogue in Pittsburgh by a crazy white supremacist. And I'm not afraid to eat pretzels. I mean, I'm on a diet now, but when I'm off the diet, I'll eat pretzels again. You know what's scary? What's scary is if you go to YouTube, and you look at what the witnesses were saying across the street from the supermarket when the ambulances were still there and the bodies weren't cold, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Because that's not the fringe. That's not the fringe. That's not some crazy KKK guy from Kentucky that hates the Jews. That's regular people on the street. That's regular people. This is how regular people talk. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That scares the living crud out of me. What? What were they saying? You had it coming. I'm glad that they did it. The Jews brought this on themselves. You shouldn't be here. It's nuts. If you go to Dov Hinken's Twitter page, he posted it. He's the assemblyman from New York. That's terrifying. To me, again, legit terrifying. Now, can I tell you what Yaakov was doing with Esav? And I'm not victim shaming right now, and I'm not victim blaming right now. And I hate that I have to give that public service announcement, but I know that people are going to misunderstand what I'm about to say. But I don't care. I'm going to tell you anyway. Here's what the Torah is saying that Yaakov was doing with his brother Esav. Again, why was he sending these very particular proportions of these animals in these groups? We said before, because I'm not really sending you money. I wasn't sending you money. I didn't send you a bag of cash. I sent you seeds. Take this seed, put it in the ground, and in 3 months, you have your own empire of horses. Take these seeds, plant them in the ground, and in 9 months, you have an empire of cattle. Take these seeds, put them in the ground, and in a year, you have an empire of camels. You see what the difference is between that and money? What was Yaakov giving Esav? That's right. A future. Future. He was giving Esav the ability of self-sufficiency. So that Esav would see him not as an enemy, but as a partner. He said, I am invested in your success. Yeah.
Is it the same list of style like Noah? Like how
No.
on the boat and all that?
Mm-mm. That's a different thing. That's for perpetuity and propagation of species. But we can talk about that afterwards.
Similar?
Mm-mm. No. No. Different thought. So, that's not the same thing as a ransom. This is seed money in your business. I'm giving you the ability to sustain yourself and make your own wealth. Now, listen for a moment. I can't believe I'm saying this. Listen for a moment to the Facebook post. Listen to what she's saying. She's saying, you're coming here and you're gentrifying my city. You're waving around your money bags and buying people out of their homes. Of course, you look at that, what does the typical Jew think when he or she sees that? I don't understand. You're angry at me because I walked up and offered you too much money for your house? Like, that makes you upset? How happy would you be if someone knocked on your door and offered you 300% of the value of your house? High five! High five! High fives all around! You'd be ecstatic. That's not what's happening here. Because other people and you don't necessarily think the same. So what's the problem?
The
See,
problem is she's not embarrassed to say that, and she works for the Board of Education of New York City.
oh, no doubt.
And that she's not embarrassed to
No
be
doubt.
quoted and to be quoted saying
100%.
that.
100%.
That's the problem now, that
Yes.
people are voicing their opinions.
True.
And they don't care
But why
what's
does
going
she
to happen
think
after
that?
that.
But why does she think that?
She could think that at her coffee table in her house,
No doubt.
in her kitchen,
But when she puts
she's
it out
saying
there,
it out loud and she doesn't
Absolutely
know.
true.
Problem why people think
I'm
that.
asking, why do they think
She
that?
has no fear of losing her job, of losing, because
Agreed.
there's
So
no.
why does she think? Yes. Meaning, if I see the Jew not as somebody who comes into my community and grows my community, not as somebody who comes into my community.
But that's like us as Jews, but the Ku Klux Klan also is trained like that to think about black people the same way.
Different, but there are similarities. When Yaakov gives Esav tribute, it's not a ransom. It's self-sufficiency. He's saying to Esav, I'm your partner and I'm invested in your success. Why? Or are you telling me that if you fail, it's my fault? It's not my fault that you failed. They're blaming Jewish landowners for evicting people that don't pay the bills. Do you know what happens to Jews who don't pay the bills in the same building? Of course they get evicted. Do you know what happens to redheads who don't pay their rent in the building? They get evicted. You know what happens to petite people who don't pay their... What about people that wear blue shirts? It doesn't matter. You didn't pay the rent, you get evicted. What does that have to do with the fault of the Jewish landlord? Nothing. That's 100% true. Now listen to what the Torah is telling you. Of course it's true. Of course it's true that you don't owe anything to the guy that you're evicting. Of course it's true that I don't have to sit there and give you money and work hard for you. Of course that's true. But you have an anti-Semitism problem, don't you? Yeah, you do. one of the forms that anti-Semitism takes is that people look at you as harmful to them.
Sprung for like 4 more minutes, not the other way.
You're not investing, you're not helping them
Yeah.
be self-sufficient. Is it your problem whether or not they're self-sufficient? No, it's their problem. Doesn't matter. I mean, it might matter. That's one of the 3. You're not paying a ransom. That's not what you're doing. If they're happy, they don't hate you. Can I ask you something? You ever wonder about the Italians? Ever wonder about the Italians? How come you don't find Italians hating Jews? They get along rather well, right? In Toad Hill, Staten Island, they all live together. We all love food. We're very fat. We love family and songs and ethnic songs and stuff. Like, how come the Jews get along so well with the Italians? Because they're doing fine. Because they're doing fine. That's why. They're doing fine. Do you know why the British Labour Party is anti-Semitic? What is their slogan? For the many, not the few. Who's the few? The Jew is the few. For the many, not the Jew. That's what the placards that they were holding on the march. For the many, not the Jew. Because we're saying to you that we know what you're saying when you say for the many, not the few. You're saying you want to take my money and distribute it to those 1,000 people. But I came a generation ago and I had nothing and I walked out of a furnace in Europe. And you didn't raise a finger to help me. And I came to your place and I paid my taxes and I did very well. I did very, very well for myself. And now I have $100 million. You want to take half of my money and give it to other people? The answer is absolutely yes, I do. Why? Because there's 10,000 of them and there's one of you and it's not fair. That's why. Is it fair? No! Say it about fair. The DNA of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party is in Parshas Vayishlach. DNA. Never different. Manifests differently. There are people that are white supremacists who hate Jews for a very different reason. There's all sorts of reasons. Right now Judaism has a problem with Muslims in the Middle East. Not just the Middle East, in Europe also. Massive anti-Semitism. Massive anti-Semitism. But you know that Islam doesn't really have a problem with Jews. It really doesn't, historically. You're looking at a very myopic lens. Right now it does. Right now Islam has a problem with Judaism. But historically, if you go back for the past 2,000 years, Islam doesn't have a Judaism problem. It's a different issue. There's this issue, and there's that issue, and there's that issue. And they're not the same. And the one that's the most troubling by Yaakov, I'll just finish this up and then I'll take the questions. The one that's the most troubling by Yaakov, you understand, sometimes there's nothing you can do. You're going to have to fight. They're coming to kill you. You're going to have to fight the Germans. You can't pay off the Nazis. They're not interested. They're willing to lose their own money and their own territory and their own soldiers just to kill you. Them, you pray and you fight. But there are other people, you can do very, very well with them. Invest in their success. And if they see you as leeches, this is what's going to happen. Not justifying. It's not a justification. It's a reality. Yeah.
What would you classify as the first anti-Semitic event in the Torah, would you say?
The first anti-Semitic event is Lavan. Yeah. Lavan tries to uproot everything.
So he's the first anti-Semite, you would think?
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you can make the argument maybe Ishmael. You can make the argument maybe Job. I mean, it depends. There's different ways to look at that. But I would say Lavan because it says Bigish Lavan Lakar Simple. I would start there. I saw a hand.
No, I was just going to say that, my dad growing up in Tangiers, I would always ask, I asked him, I would ask my grandparents, how come during the early 1940s when the Holocaust was happening, nobody touched, our family?
Ah, right. The Spartan.
And it was because my dad's answer was always, Muhammad looked at us as Arabs, not Jews.
Right.
We weren't Jews. We were just one of...
We were one people.
We were one people,
Yeah.
and I think he was able to save
Oh, many. There's no question.
all of our families.
Yeah. There's no question. There's no question.
So,
So again, not to be misunderstood. It doesn't mean it's hard for people to parse this nowadays. It's hard for people to parse this nowadays. You have this. I'll give you. Once we're being so offensive, we may as well like go all the way. Okay. So you have this. There will be some girl gets raped to death because she was wearing certain clothing or not wearing certain clothing, and then the pundits come out and say, well, if she wasn't wearing that clothing, she wouldn't have gotten raped. And it was like, oh my God, victim shaming and da da da. How dare you? And you're saying it's okay to do this to somebody because she decided to wear what she's wearing? The answer is those are two completely separate issues. Completely separate issues. And if you don't know how to think about them separately, I can't help you. There's two different issues. Number one, that guy's a rapist. He should be A, castrated, and B, killed. That's my personal feeling. It's a good thing I don't run the government, but there would be a lot, yeah. Wrong. Then there's the second issue. How do I protect myself to the utmost? How can I best ensure that these things don't happen to me from evil people? That's a different question, don't you see? They're different questions. Different questions. I'm not blaming the victims in the supermarket in New Jersey. I'm telling you what Grandpa Jake had to say about it. I hope I didn't offend you too much with this class. Have an unbelievable Hanukkah and a beautiful break, and we'll see each other at Bezrat Hashem in January.
Chag Sameach.
Much love. Chag Sameach.
Thank you.